Hey, what's going on, guys? Talking a little bit of Stranger Things today with the conclusion finally hitting us on New Year's Eve. I know there are a lot of questions, probably more than answers that we all wanted. Maybe a little disappointing, but I still had a lot of love for this season, mostly because I'm a total stan for the show. I grew up with it through high school, sue me. But the one question that we all had, and it was answered, is that was the Flayer or Vecna in control this whole time? And ultimately, the answer is they pretty much needed each other and they converse into one being, kind of making it a two bird one stone situation for our protagonist. And obviously, I'm not satisfied with the way that Henry is killed, kind of just by a whole lot of telekinesis. The setting inside of the Flayer was cool, probably on screen, but when you're inside of something like that, there's not really many things to throw with your telekinesis. I don't know. That was the biggest problem to me in the entire finale was just it didn't feel very climactic once they were actually having their final battle. But my biggest question is, was the Flayer really just manipulating Henry until the very end? Because we know in the very beginning when Henry got the stone in the tunnel that he was supposed to fight back. The guy told him to fight back, and he fucking kills him the second the Flayer gets in his head. Obviously, the Flayer is the one who did that, but we learned that Henry never even tried to fight back the way that Billy fights back in season 3, and the Flayer pretty much executes the fucker for it. Henry never even has like an inkling of a good thought. So I just feel like the Mind Flayer was like, I don't even have to flay this little crazy bastard. I can just kind of I can use him, you know what I mean? The same way that he wanted to use Will, of course. And it makes me wonder, like, how many people, we know the Flayer's been around for millions of years, how many people has he tried to manipulate in this manner? And has he had another five-star general? Has there ever been another Vecna that failed and maybe he disposed of because he saw something like this happening? I would argue he becomes far too dependent on Vecna, allowing him to literally become the funnel to his heart in season 5. I It's like he wanted to use him to become that invincible motherfucker, like his physical form that is shown in 5. And like when they morph into one and they kill Vecna, it kills the Mind Flayer. I'm not convinced that the bullets, the fire, the fucking like earthquake causing all the mountain to fall on the fucker's head. I'm not convinced any of that really bothered him. But the fact that it's a hive mind and Vecna was really never part of that hive mind, he just was able to control it. But when he is actually intertwined to the heart of the Flayer and they kill him as easy as they do, I like when Joyce chops his fucking head off because that kind of brings it full circle. But the L fight with him to me was just like, you could have made that a lot better. Um, I just don't think that the idea of putting him in the Flayer was worth the squeeze. You know what I'm saying? Probably sounded great when they thought about it, but it just wasn't. And the ultimate kryptonite of the Flayer himself, and the writers, I don't know if they meant to write it this way, but the fact that he is a hive mind almost leaves it implausible that he would allow something that he brought into this world to become part of him in a way that if Henry dies, he fucking dies. I'm in the camp that does believe the Flayer is dead, but I don't think he ever would have died if he wasn't so infatuated with the idea of world domination. And I think that he would have never stopped trying to take over the entire universe because he's inherently evil, always will be, always has been. But when you become so dependent on Henry that you're allowing him to pretty much pump you up and pump himself up, we know that there are just more extreme versions of himself in this season and the finale itself, that he makes himself a way easier target. I don't think the Mind Flayer ever would have been killed by the people in Hawkins. He would have probably ruled the entire Earth if he maybe had come at this from a different direction, but I guess he did need someone like Henry to intertwine himself to that real world and kind of surveil over El. That's why he wanted Will so badly. And what if Will was really the part that the Flayer wanted so bad? I just feel like maybe if Vecna would have been disposed of after season 4, which, I didn't write the show, but if Vecna had been just pretty much put down by the Flayer after season 4 and didn't really allow him to regenerate and become like strapped all of a sudden, that the Flayer would probably still be alive and well. I have a few questions about the Mind Flayer and kind of the fate of Henry and what had happened before. I know we're going to get a lot of those questions in the prequel. Maybe some of them were answered in the play, but I didn't see it. And of all the terrible ass questions that the Duffers weren't able to answer after writing the script, I thought probably the worst that they looked was when people asked them, where are the Demogorgons, where are the bats? They're all around in season 4. They'll fucking just come anywhere. The Demogorgons are everywhere, it seems like, in this show, except in the finale where they should be everywhere. They live on this fucking planet and are controlled by the Flayer and Vecna. But I feel like the answer they should have given, whether this is correct or not, considering that it's all a hive mind, like I said, the biggest kryptonite of this entire creature, and now Vecna, is that one controls all. And now maybe two controls all. If they're both, the controllers of this hive mind, and they're both fighting, our protagonist in Dimension X, who's going to grab the controller and, who's moving around the Demogorgons and the bats? I feel like they're just idling somewhere, probably around Miss Wheeler, trying to still kill her crazy ass, or maybe the bats are still at Eddie's body. And I know a lot of people theorize that the Flayer is still alive because the particles that fly out of the kid's mouth at the end after they're unplugged from their outlet. I don't think it's still alive because it doesn't have a hive mind to control it, but it's going somewhere, and it seems to be going to Dimension X up in the sky. Kind of mixing that one, but the real question is, where the hell is that stone? If somebody can just pick that stone up now and it doesn't bother them, I guess we're all good. But I feel like, we're going to be seeing it again probably in 10 years when we get the conclusion of what really happened to 11. And I just don't think that the Flayer is going to be dead forever, but I do think he's dead now. I think we've seen the last of Henry. I don't think it would be clever to bring him back. It would be nice to see, just kind of like I mentioned earlier, someone else to be that new 5-star general. Somebody that somehow doesn't have those wounds in their mind. Like, say they didn't even get scared by the idea of allowing the Flayer in. Maybe it's someone that hunts the Flayer out in the future iterations of Stranger Things, because I don't think there's any way that we're not getting, a sequel movie. I don't think we'll ever get another series. But who knows? I mean, that would make so much fucking money that I'm sure that they've at least asked the Duffers. They're like, come on. And another question I always had, did the Flayer know about mankind and wanted to come wipe us out from Dimension X? Or was it more like, when the humans tried to get to this dimension or another dimension of some sort, they saw this crazy bastard and somehow got a hold of this rock and realized how bad it was. So, whoever the dude was that Henry killed was pretty much trying to dispose of that thing. I don't know if he was hiding in this cave with it, or he was literally just about to die or going mad. Whatever was going on, the Flayer really doesn't like mankind, and I'm not convinced that he found us on his own. I'm pretty sure that it was Dr. Brenner. Like I said, I haven't seen the play, sue me. But I don't think that the Flayer would have been able to find us from that dimension. We know that the Upside Down was created on the day that Will went there for the first time. There's no way that the Flayer had this amount of intentions. I think it's someone else's fault that he ever had the desire to take over someone as a vessel and use him against the good of man. I felt like the Flayer became so fascinated with the idea of taking the world and whatever else he could for his own that he was almost tricking himself into thinking he did need Vecna. He just wanted Vecna for, his powers to be able to manipulate Earth. He couldn't really get to Earth without, the telepathic powers of Vecna. He couldn't have anyone be a vessel because no one is evil as Vecna. But I think it would be awesome in whatever iterations of the future of Stranger Things that there's someone in this town, maybe even they could use a past character that has some demons that maybe we don't know about and becomes the ultimate vessel for the Flayer that Vecna wasn't. All in all, I feel these two were pretty much the most toxic relationship of all time. They both felt they needed each other, when in reality, Henry should have fought the bastard the way the dude with the suitcase said, and he would have pretty much just been like Will, maybe connected to the thing, but, it wouldn't have been such a ridiculous effect into the future that all this shit at Hawkins happens, and Henry would have never revealed his true powers in a way that murders his entire family. But Stranger Things would have never happened. I don't think that we'll ever be seeing Henry on the big screen, but I feel like whatever iteration they bring back, the Flayer is making his return, but I do think he's dead now. What do you guys think? What was your opinion on the finale of season 5? I am going to be doing a review on each season because I fucking love this show. I know I'm a little late, but I don't care.